Hej och välkommen tillbaka till kanalen. Idag är det vecka 9 och vi ska fortsätta läsa den här Torah portion. Och vi kommer läsa från Genesis 37, 1 till 40, 23. Den här Torah portion heter Vayeshev och det betyder and he settled. Och han bosatte sig. Men det kommer handla om Jakobs söner, hur de säljer Josef då till Egypten, och Juda när han gör fel mot sin svärdotter Tamar, som lurar honom också att fullfölja hans ed, och sen slutligen Josef när han tjänar Potifar och kastas i fängelse på grund av falska grunder från Potifars fru. Och som vanligt så tänker jag att vi hoppar in och läser i Jasher, Book of Jasher också. Så vi hoppar väl in och börjar i Genesis, första Mosebok 37. Now Jacob lived in the land where his father had lived as a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the records of the generations of Jacob. Joseph, when he was 17 years of age, was pasturing the flock with his brother, while he was still a youth, along with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Silpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought back a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel, som är Jakob, loved Joseph more than all his other sons, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a multicolored tunic, and his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all the brothers. And so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Please listen to this dream which I have had. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaves stood up and also remained standing, and behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." Then his brothers said to him, "Are you actually going to reign over us? Or are you really going to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he had yet another dream, and informed his brother of it, and said, "Behold, I have yet another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He also told it to his father as well as to his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have had? Am I and your mother and your brother actually going to come to bow down to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Then his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "Are your brothers not pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said to him, "I will go." Then he said to him, "Go now and see about the welfare of your brother and the welfare of the flock, and bring word back to me." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. A man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, "What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are pasturing the flock." Then the man said, "They have moved from here, for I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brother and found them at Dothan. When they saw him from distance, and before he came closer to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Now then, come, let us kill him, and throw him into one of the pits, and we will say, a vicious animal devoured him. Then we will see what will become of his dreams." But Reuben heard this, and rescued him from their hands by saying, "Let's not take his life." Then Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into the pit that is in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, so that later he might rescue him out of their hands, to return him to his father." So it came about, when Joseph reached his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the multicolored tunic that was on him, and they took him and threw him in the pit. Now the pit was empty, without any water in it. Vi kan hoppa in och läsa lite i Jasher också. Det verkar ju som att bröderna är väldigt elaka mot Josef, som inte har gjort någonting. Men vi läste lite snabbt här att Josef brought back a bad report about them to his father. Och vad betyder det? Är det liksom, rapporterar han om att de betedde sig dåligt? Eller, som sagt, Bibeln är ganska kort i sina beskrivningar. Men om vi hoppar in i Jasher kapitel 41. Och det handlar om samma sak här. "And at the revolution of the years, the sons of Jacob journeyed from Shechem, and they came to Hebron, to their father Isaac, and they dwelt there. But their flocks and herds they fed daily in Shechem, for there was there in those days good and fat pastures. And Jacob and his sons and all their household dwelt in the valley of Hebron. And it was in those days, in that year, being the 160th years of life of Jacob, in the 10th year of Jacob's coming from Padan Aram, that Leah, the wife of Jacob, died. She was 51 years old when she died in Hebron. And Jacob and his sons buried her in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth, for a possession of burial place. And the sons of Jacob dwelt with their fathers in the valley of Hebron, and all the inhabitants of the land knew their strength, and their fame went throughout the land. De kände deras brödernas styrka där, och de hade ju slagit hela staden Shechem, och kungarna runt omkring också vågade inte gå i krig med dem. And Joseph, the son of Jacob, and his brother Benjamin, the son of Rachel, the wife of Jacob, were yet young in those days, and did not go out with their brethren during the battle in all the cities of the Amorites. And when Joseph saw the strength of his brethren and their greatness, he praised them and exalted them. But he ranked himself greater than them, and exalted himself above them. And Jacob his father also loved him more than any of his sons, for he was the son of his old age. And through his love toward him, he made him a coat of many colors. Så här står det att Josef han prisade sina bröders styrkor, men han ansåg sig själv vara bättre än dem. And when Joseph saw that his father loved him more than his brethren, he continued to exalt himself above his brethren, and he brought on to his father evil reports concerning them. Så här ser vi då. Vad är det för evil reports? Är det, vad ska man säga? Han anser ju sig vara lite bättre, Josef här. Hittar han på, överdriver han elakheter mot dem och berättar för sin far. And the sons of Jacob, seeing the whole of Joseph's conduct toward them, and their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him all the days. And Joseph was 17 years old, and he was still magnifying himself above his brethren, and thought of raising himself above them. Så här ser vi att han ansåg sig bättre egentligen. At that time he dreamed a dream, and he came unto his brethren and told them his dream. And he said unto them, I dreamed a dream, and behold, we were all binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf rose and placed itself upon the ground, and your sheaves surrounded it and bowed down to it. And his brethren answered him and saying unto him, What meaneth this dream that you dream? Do you imagine in your heart to reign and rule over us? And he still came and told these things to his father Jacob. And Jacob kissed Joseph when he heard these words from his mouth. And Jacob blessed Joseph. And when the sons of Jacob saw that their father had blessed Joseph and had kissed him, and that he loved him exceedingly, they became jealous of him and hated him the more. And after this Joseph dreamed another dream, and related the dream to his father in the presence of his brethren. And Joseph said unto his father and the brethren, Behold, I have again dreamed a dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bow down to me. And his father heard the words of Joseph and his dream. And seeing that his brethren hated Joseph on account of this matter, Jacob therefore rebuked Joseph before his brethren on account of this thing, saying, What meaneth this dream which you have dreamed, and this magnifying yourself before your brethren, who are older than you are? Så flera saker som är intressant. Bibeln säger att på 2 eller 3 vittnen så ska någonting avgöras, eller att det blir äkta då. Och här han får ju 2 drömmar, så då kanske Jakob tänker att men det här kanske inte bara var en påhittad dröm så, eller en obetydlig dröm. Och så får vi också reda på att det är därför Jacob rebuked Joseph before his brethren on account of this thing. Alltså att var därför Jakob röt ifrån till Josef, för att han ser ju här vad som händer bröderna emellan. Och han vill väl inte att det ska uppstå en ytterligare en konflikt liksom. Do you imagine in your heart that I and your mother and your 11 brother will come and bow down to you, and you speak those things? And his brethren were jealous of him on account of his word and dreams, and they continued to hate him. And Jacob reserved the dreams in his heart. And the sons of Jacob went one day to feed their father's flock in Shechem, for they were still herdsmen in those days. And whilst the sons of Jacob were in the day feeding in Shechem, they delayed, and the time of gathering in the cattle was past, and they had not arrived. And Jacob saw that his sons were delaying in Shechem, and Jacob said to himself, Peradventure the people of Shechem have risen up to fight against them, therefore have they delayed coming this day. And Jacob called Joseph his son and commanded him, saying, Behold, your brother are feeding in Shechem this day, and behold, they have not come back. Go now therefore and see where they are, and bring me word back concerning the welfare of your brother and the welfare of the flock. And Jacob sent his son Joseph to the valley of Hebron, and Joseph came for his brother to Shechem, and could not find them. And Joseph went about the field which were near Shechem to see where his brother had turned, and he missed the road in the wilderness, and knew not which way he should go. And the angel of the Lord. Och det här har vi pratat om tidigare. vilket jag tror är Messias. The angel of the Lord found him wandering in the road towards the field, and Joseph said to the angel of the Lord, I seek my brethren. Has you not heard where they are feeding? And the angel of the Lord said unto Joseph, I saw your brethren feeding here, and I heard them say they would go to feed in Dothan. And Joseph hearkened to the voice of the angel of the Lord, and he went to his brethren in Dothan, and found them in Dothan, feeding the flock. Så Bibeln sa att det var en man som kom. Här säger det att det är Herrens ängel. And Joseph advanced to his brethren, and before he had come nigh unto them, they had resolved to slay him. And Simeon said to his brother, Behold, the man of dreams is coming unto us this day, and now therefore come, let us kill him, and cast him in one of the pits that are in the wilderness. And when his father shall seek him from us, we will say, an evil beast has devoured him. And Reuben heard the words of his brethren concerning Joseph, and he said unto them, You should not do this thing, for how can we look up to our father Jacob? Cast him in this pit to die here, but stretch not forth a hand upon him to spill his blood. And Reuben said this in order to deliver him from their hands, to bring him back to his father. And when Joseph came to his brethren, he sat before them, and they rose up upon him, and seized him, and smote him to the earth, and stripped the coat of many colors which he had on. And they took him, and cast him into the pit, and in the pit there was no water, but serpents and scorpions. And Joseph was afraid of the serpents and the scorpions that were in the pit. But Joseph cried out with a loud voice, and Yahweh hid the serpent and the scorpions in the sides of the pit, and they did no harm unto Joseph. And Joseph called out from the pit to his brethren, and said unto them, What have I done unto you, and in what have I sinned? Why do you not fear Yahweh concerning me? Am I not of your bone and flesh? And is not Jacob your father my father? Why do you do this thing unto me this day? And how will you be able to look upon our father Jacob? And he continued to cry out and call unto his brethren from the pit. And he said, O Judah, Simeon, and Levi, my brethren, lift me up from the place of darkness in which you have placed me, and come this day to have compassion on me, you children of Yahweh, the sons of Jacob, my father. And if I have sinned unto you, are you not the sons of Jacob, Isaac, and Jacob? If they saw the orphan, they had compassion over him, or one that was hungry, they gave him bread to eat, or one that was thirsty, they gave him water to drink, or one that was naked, they covered him with garments. Intressant här för Jehusha, Jesus, säger ju också till lärjungarna att han ger en liknelse att när jag var hungrig så matade ni mig. När jag var törstig så gav ni mig vatten. Och när jag inte hade kläder så gav ni mig kläder. Bara intressant att se det, samma uttryck som ges här liksom. Och lärjungarna frågar ju då liksom, men när har du varit, när har du suttit i fängelse, ger jag också som ett exempel, och när har du varit utan kläder och så här. Och då säger han ju liksom att det ni har gjort mot den minste har ni gjort mot mig också. Så egentligen samma princip återspeglas redan här. And how then will you withhold your pity from your brother? For I am of your flesh and bones, And if I have sinned unto you, surely you will do this on account of my father. And Joseph spoke these words from the pit, and his brethren could not listen to him, nor incline their ears to the words of Joseph. And Joseph was crying and weeping in the pit. And Joseph said, Oh, that my father knew this day the act which my brother have done unto me, and the words which they have said, which they have this day spoken unto me. And all his brethren heard his cries and weeping in the pit, and his brethren went and removed themselves from the pit, so that they might not hear the cries of Joseph and his weeping in the pit. Ja, vi hoppar tillbaka till Bibeln. Genesis. Och då kommer vi tillbaka här då, där Josef hade kommit ikapp de här då. But they raised their eyes and looked, behold, ja, just det. De slängde honom i gropen här. Och sen står det här att de satte sig och åt. Och sen såg de en karavan av Ishmaelites. A caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilead with their camels carrying labdanum, resin, balsam and myrrh on their way to bring them down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it for us to kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh, and his brothers listen to him. Then some Midianites trader passed by, so they pulled him out of and lifted Joseph out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. So they brought Joseph into Egypt. Eller Mitzraim också heter Egypten. Now Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. So he tore his garments and returned to his brothers and said, The boy is not there. As for me, where am I to go? So they took Joseph's tunic and slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in the blood. And they sent the multicolored tunic and brought it to their father and said, We found this. Please examine it to see whether it is your son's tunic or not. Then he examined it and said, It is my son's tunic. A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. So Jacob tore his clothes and put on sackcloth, undergarment over his waist, and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and all his daughters got up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, Surely I will go down to Sheol, alltså helvetet. I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. So his father wept for him. Meanwhile the Midianites sold him in Mitzraim to Potifar, Pharaoh's officer, the captain of the bodyguard. Kapitel 38. Nu hoppar vi lite. Book of Jasher fortsätter ju att beskriva mer detaljerat vad som hände på vägen och så här för Josef. Men vi fortsätter att läsa nu. Nu kommer det handla om Juda. And it came about at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite, whose name was Hira. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her as a wife and had relations with her. And she conceived and gave birth to a son, and he named him Er. Then she conceived again and gave birth to a son, and she named him Onan. She gave birth to yet another son and named him Shelah. And it was at Chesib that she gave birth to them. En kananeisk kvinna. De har ju blivit avrådda att ha samhörighet med dem. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of Yahweh. So Yahweh took his life. Jag letade lite i Jasher, vad var det han gjorde? Vad var det som var elakt i Herrens ögon? Vad var det mer precis han gjorde? Jag hittade ingenting. Jag kanske missade någonting, men jag tyckte det var lite intressant att leta om det stod någonting mer om det här. Hur som helst, Yahweh took his life. Och jag tycker det här är intressant. Hur vet man om någon går bort? Hur vet man att det här var det Yahweh, Gud, alltså som tog hans liv? Hur vet man det? När är det inte det? Är det alltid det? Bara den tanken att för det är Herren som styr och regerar. Det är han som bestämmer saker och ting. Jag tror inte det bara händer av ingen orsak, utan han är med och styr, tillåter. Ja. Och inte bara att men det här hände. Att vi inte är utelämnade helt och hållet för oss själva bara, utan han är med hela tiden, oavsett om vi väljer att vandra med honom eller inte, eller hur nära honom vi vill vandra. Så bara säga om någon som går bort liksom, ja, Herren tog hans liv nu. Man skulle använda såna uttryck egentligen. Föra tillbaka Herren i vardagen. Hur som helst, vi fortsätter. Then Judah said to Onan, have relations with your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her and raise up children for your brother. Now Onan knew that the child would not be his. So when he had relations with his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground so that he would not give a child to his brother. Så det här är också intressant då att fick en fru som heter Tamar. Dog. Juda säger då till sin andra son Onan, du ska ta Tamar till fru nu och föra fram barn för din brors i din brors ställe. Och då tänker Onan att men det blir inte hans barn. Jag tycker det är bara en intressant tanke. Det är ju hans sid, om man säger. Men hur som helst, han låter hans säd spillas ut på ground, som det står här. Wasted his seed on the ground. But what he did was displeasing in the sight of Yahweh. So he took his life also. Så det här var inget bra. Och vad var det som inte var bra här? Jag tror vi har, i Sverige har ju fått, jag tror det i alla fall, den här onan, jag tror det onani kommer ifrån det, och att det är dåligt för att man spiller sin säd. Man gör någonting som det var inte tanken att det skulle vara så här. Det ska inte ske på det här sättet. Och därför är onani dåligt. Och jag säger inte varken bu eller bä till någonting, utan ta det till Herren. Om ni har funderingar på det. Är det själva akten att spilla sin säd, förbruka den någon annanstans? Var det som var displeasing för Herren? Eller var det just att han inte ville ge barn? Han ville inte föra fram barn åt någon annan. Han ville inte egentligen. Var det som var displeasing, eller var det handlingen, den sexuella handlingen, som var displeasing? Jag tror det senare, liksom, att hjärtats inställning till att ja, men här får han ett uppdrag, du ska föra fram barn till din bror här. Det vill han inte, liksom. Och man ska inte tycka dåligt om någon. Hur skulle man själv reagera? Det kan man ju fundera på. Men ja, jag ville bara ta upp det. Och hur som helst så var det då displeasing, det här agerandet. Så Herren tog hans liv också på grund av det. Och det är sällan man tänker att nej, men den här personen levde så här, så att ja, men Herren tog ju hans liv. Det är ingen som reagerar så, eller det är ingen som tänker så idag. Jaha, alltså gick den där personen bort? Ja, men han har väl gjort någonting dåligt då. Så Herren gillar inte det. Det var inget konstigt. Nu gick han ju bort. Nu är det rätt åt han. Ja, men liksom, jag tycker det är så vida skillnad på hur det verkar som att folk tänkte. Ja, men man hade Herren som centrum i sina liv förr. På ett annat sätt. Nu är Gud någon som han får komma in i rummet ibland, liksom. Han kan få vara med ibland, men vi är utelämnade, och vi lever precis hur som helst och lever i vilka traditioner och sättningar som helst. Sen kan Gud få vara med lite ibland. Men här är det ju Herren som bestämmer. Och sen kommer vi och få hålla på och greja. Then Juda said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he thought, I am afraid that he too may die like his brothers." So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. Så han säger till Tamar att ja, men vänta lite, så får du vänta in min tredje son här tills han har vuxit upp. Men Juda var tveksam också, att han kommer säkert göra likadant som mina andra söner. Jobbigt läge för Juda. Han fick ändå 3 söner. 2 av dem dog. Och alla verkar vara liksom hårdnackade. Och det är så här, ja, men då kom ihåg då, Herren har sagt, ta inte en kananeisk fru, liksom. Skaffa inte barn därifrån. Och nu gjorde man det. Och så gick det så här. Och det var så här, hur ska man tänka? Ja, fy vad Herren är elak. Vad han är sträng. Eller var det ett kärleksfullt råd? Det var nog det. För att det kommer inte gå väl med ett folkslag då som har blivit cursed, förbannat, på grund av sina vägval. Så då är det svårt, om ens möjligt, att göra någonting bra av sådana situationer. Och hur många sådana situationer har vi i våra liv? Eller våra förfäder? Inte en aning. Man vill ju inte hamna där. Man vill ju inte... Tänk man själv skulle få... Ja, men alla har ju säkert upplevt problem och svårigheter i ens liv med relationer och barn och allt möjligt som ser hopplösa ut och har slutat illa kanske. Man lär ju vilja höra Herrens råd. Herre kommer ju ge oss råd. Inte bara vandra på och sen nu ställs jag inför det här. Herren välsigna mig i det här. Snälla ta mig ut i det här. Utan hoppas Herren kommer före och varna mig. Så att man inte träder in i någonting som blir hopplöst liksom. Now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Juda, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Judah went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, and he saw his friend Hira, the Adullamite, and Tamar was told, behold, your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garment and covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself and sat in the gateway of Enaim, which is on the road of Timnah. Juda är på väg hit till staden. Tamar får höra det, så hon klär av sig sin widow garment. Intressant, hade de speciella kläder när de var änkor? För att visa att de var änkor. For she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he assumed she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, here now, let me have relations with you. For he did not know that she was the daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me, that you may have relations with me? And he said, therefore, I will send you a young goat from the flock. She then said, will you give a pledge until you send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord, and your staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her and had relations with her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and departed, and removed her veil, and put on her widow's garment. Ja. Ni hängde med vad som hände. Jag tar det inte på svenska. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he did not find her. He asked the people of her place, saying, where is the temple prostitute who was by the road of Enaim? But they said, there has been no temple prostitute here. So he returned to Judah and said, I did not find her. And furthermore, the people of the place said, there has been no temple prostitute here. Then Judah said, let her keep them, otherwise we will become a laughingstock. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, your daughter-in-law Tamar has prostituted herself, and behold, she is also pregnant by prostitution. Then Judah said, bring her out, and have her burned. It was while she was being brought out that she sent word to her father-in-law, saying, I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. Vi stannar lite där. Juda, till en början kan Juda verka väldigt elak då. Bara för ut henne här och bränn henne för det hon har gjort. Men det, prostitution skulle ju inte, jag ska inte gå in på alla detaljer. Jag kan det inte 100%. Men vi kommer läsa om de här längre fram. Det jag vill säga, har sagt egentligen, är väl att Judas beteende är egentligen rättfärdigt då. Han vet ju inte om vad han har gjort. Han tror att hon har levt ett gudlöst liv också då. Ja, vi fortsätter läsa. She also said, "Please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these." And Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not have relations with her again." It came about at the time she was giving birth, that behold, there were twins in her womb. Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth, that one baby put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, "This one came first." But it came about as he drew back his hand, and behold, his brother came out. And she said, "What a breach you have made for yourself." So he was named Perez. Afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was named Serah. Så gjorde hon något fel, Tamar? Jag tror inte hon gjorde det. Hon var widow och ja, vi behöver inte sitta och spekulera, men jag tycker det är intressant att veta hur när är det rätt och när är det fel? Hur får man agera? Här är de båda widow, kan man säga. Judas fru har ju dött. Och Tamars män har dött. Får de gå och ha sexuella relationer med någon utan att det ska vara ett giftermål? Eller ska de stenas då? Förstår ni? Ska de brinna då? Är det alltid fel, eller får man göra så här om man kommer överens och betalar liksom, eller? Sånt här tycker jag är intressant att veta. Vad är rätt och vad är fel? Så att man inte liksom, ja men jag tycker det här är fel, eller jag tycker det här är rätt. Men vad tycker Herren? Vad säger han? Hur ska vi bete oss? Och om man hamnar i situationer själv, vad är man skyldig att göra? Och vad är den andra parten skyldig att göra? Och så vice versa. Juda säger här, "She is more righteous than I." För han gav ju inte sin son som han skulle göra. Och så hände det här av misstag. Och en annan sak då. Det här var ju ett misstag. Juda visste ju inte att det var hon. Och om man vet det, så har vi ju 3 Mosebok kapitel 18-15. "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. You shall not uncover her nakedness." Så det är inte tillåtet att göra så här mot en svärdotter. Så det är en synd som sker här. Men någonting som vi också kommer läsa, prästerskapet etableras ju här längre fram, och Israels barn, avkommor, Israels sid, har haft syndernas förlåtelse i och med prästerskapet. Så det har alltid funnits väg till att göra bättring och få förlåtelse för sin synd. Det är inte bara Jesus Jehusha som kom och fixade det, utan det fanns redan. Det fanns redan med prästerskapet. Det var vissa förordningar där. Kapitel 39. Och nu är vi tillbaka hos Josef då, när han är i Mizraim, i Egypten. Och jag vill läsa lite i Jesher här också, ganska mycket. Men det, jag tycker det är intressant också vad han fick möta på, Josef där, med Potifars fru där. Så vi börjar läsa. Now Joseph had been taken down to Mizraim, and Potifar, the Mizraim officer, Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the bodyguard, bought him from the Ishmaelites, who had taken him down there. And Yahweh was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. Now his master saw that Yahweh was with him, and that Yahweh made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal servant. And he made him overseer over his house and put him in charge of all that he owned. It came about that from the time he made him overseer in his house and over all that he owned, and Yahweh blessed the Egyptian's house on account of Joseph. So Yahweh's blessing was upon all that he owned, in the house and in the field. So he left Joseph in charge of everything that he owned, and with him there he did not concern himself with anything except the food which he ate. Intressant. Herren var med Josef. Och det är såna här detaljer man skulle vilja hitta också. Vad var det han gjorde? Är inte Herren med oss allihop liksom? Ja, och he did not concern himself with anything except the food which he ate. Ja, okej. Han begär, jag tror det menar att han begärde ingenting annat än mat. Han vill inte ha rikedomar. Det är nog där det står. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and it came about after this event that his master's wife had her eyes on Joseph, and she said, "Sleep with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look with me here, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house, and he has put me in charge of all that he owns. There is no one greater in this house than I, and he has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. Now then, should I do this great evil and sin against Elohim?" Though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he did not listen to her, to lie beside her or be with her. Now it happened one day that he went into the house to do his work, and none of the people of the household was there inside. So she grabbed him by the garment, saying, "Sleep with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and went outside. When she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, she called to the men of the household and said to them, "See, he has brought in an Hebrew to make fun of us. He came in to me to sleep with me, and I screamed. When he heard that I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment beside me and fled and went outside. So she left his garment beside her until his master came home. Then she spoke to him with these words, the Hebrew slave whom you brought to us came into me to make fun of me, but when I raised my voice and screamed, he left his garment beside me and fled out. En annan sak jag kommer att tänka på här benämner man dem som Hebrew. Jag tror vi har, jag reagerar inte på det här riktigt, men vi läste det i Tjeckien, staden Tjeckien. Så Dina där, man benämnde henne som en Hebrew. Jag bara tänker på när det uppstår det. För tidigare, annars har det bara varit liksom Jakobs söner, Isak, Abraham men nu kallas de för en Hebrew. Har de blivit ett folk nu? Now when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spoke to him, saying, that is what your slave did to me, his anger burned. So Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, and the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But Yahweh was with Joseph, and extended kindness to him, and gave him favor in the sight of the warden of the prison. And the warden of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison, so that whatever was done there, he was responsible for it. The warden of the prison did not supervise anything under Joseph's authority, because Yahweh was with him, and Yahweh made whatever he did prosper. Så om vi hoppar in i Jasher kapitel 44, tänkte vi läsa från vers 15 till 80. At that time, whilst he was in the master's house, going in and out of the house and attending his master, Sileka, his master's wife, Selika, lifted up her eyes towards Joseph, and she looked at him, and behold, he was a youth, comely and well favored. And she coveted his beauty in her heart, and her soul was fixed upon Joseph, and she enticed him day after day, and Silika persuaded Joseph daily, but Joseph did not lift up his eyes to behold his master's wife. And Silika said unto him, how goodly are your appearance and form. Truly I have looked at all the slaves, and have not seen so beautiful a slave as you are. And Joseph said unto her, surely he who created me in my mother's womb created all mankind. And she said unto him, how beautiful are your eyes, with which you has dazzled all the inhabitants of Egypt, men and women. And he said unto her, how beautiful they are whilst we are alive. But should you behold them in the grave, surely you would move away from them. Ja, mina ögon är jättefina, men när man ligger i graven, då är de inte så fina. Ja. Han anspelar ju på att om jag fortsätter med det här så kommer det inte gå mig väl. Då kommer jag inte se så fin ut. And she said unto him, how beautiful and pleasuring are all your words. Take now, I pray you, the harp which is in the house, and play with your hands, and let us hear your words. And he said unto her, how beautiful and pleasing are my words when I speak and praise of my Elohim and his glory. And she said unto him, how very beautiful is the hair of your head. Behold the golden comb which is in the house. Take it, I pray you, and curl the hair of your head. Så här skulle man prata med människor. Hon säger till honom: åh, vilken fin röst du har. Ta harpan och spela och sjung liksom. Vi vill höra på din fina röst. Ja, absolut. Hur behaglig och fin är inte min röst när jag prisar Herren? Ja, jag tycker det är kul. Han lyfte Herren först. And he said to her, how long will you speak these words? Cease to utter these words to me, and rise and attend to your domestic affairs. And she said to him, there is no one in my house, and there is nothing to attend to, but to your words and to your wish. Yet, notwithstanding all this, she could not bring Joseph unto her. Neither did he place his eye upon her, but directed his eye below to the ground. And Silika desired Joseph in her heart that he should lie with her, and at the time that Joseph was sitting in the house doing his work, Silika came and sat before him, and she enticed him daily with her discourses to lie with her, or ever to look at her. But Joseph would not hearken to her. And she said unto him, if you will not do according to my words, I will chastise you with the punishment of death, and put an iron yoke upon you. And Joseph said unto her, surely Elohim who created man looses the feathers of prisoners, and it is he who will deliver me from your prison and from your judgment. Jag tycker det är starkt av Josef, och ja, men just det här också, men det är Gud som styr. Om jag blir testad nu, så är det Gud som testar mig. Det är han som förlöser, det är han som testar. Och också här, hon först är hon snäll, och sen blir hon arg och hotar. Det är så det funkar. Gick det inte att vara snäll, då hotar vi med död. And when she could not prevail over him to persuade him, and her soul being still fixed upon him, her desire threw her into the grievous sickness. And all the women of Egypt came to visit her, and they said unto her, why are you in this declining state? You that lack nothing, surely your husband is a great and esteemed prince in the sight of the king. Should you lack anything of what your heart desires? And Silika answered them, saying, this day it shall be made known to you whence this disorder springs in which you see me. And she commanded her maid servants to prepare food for all the women, and she made a banquet for them. And all the women ate in the house of Silika. And she gave them knives to peel the citrons, to eat them. And she commanded that they should dress Joseph in costly garments, and that he should appear before them. And Joseph came before their eyes, and all the women looked on Joseph, and could not take their eyes from off him. And they all cut their hands with the knives that they had in their hands, and all the citrons that were in the hands were filled with blood. And they knew not what they had done, but they continued to look at the beauty of Joseph, and did not turn their eyelids from him. And Silika saw what they had done, and she said unto them, what is this work that you have done? Behold, I gave you citrons to eat, and you have all cut your hands. And all the women saw their hands, and behold, they were full of blood, and their blood flowed down upon their garments. And they said unto her, This slave in your house has overcome us, and we could not turn our eyelids from him on account of his beauty. And she said unto them, Surely this happened to you in the moment that you looked at him, and you could not contain yourself from him. How then can I refrain when he is constantly in my house, and I see him day after day going in and out of my house? How then can I keep from declining, or even from perishing on account of this? And they said unto her, The words are true, for you can see this beauty form in the house and refrain from him. And is he not your slave and attendant in your house? And why do you not tell him that which is in your heart, and suffers your soul to perish through this matter? And she said unto them, I am daily endeavoring to persuade him, and he will not consent to my wishes. And I promised him everything that is good, and yet I could meet with no return from him. I am therefore in a declining state, as you see. And Sylvia became very ill on account of her desires toward Joseph, and she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And all the people of the house of Sylvia and her husbands knew nothing of this matter, that Sylvia was ill on account of her love to Joseph. And all the people of her house asked her, saying, Why are you ill and declining, and lacking nothing? And she said unto them, I know not this thing which is daily increasing upon me. And all the women and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke with her and said unto her, This can only be through the love of Joseph. And they said unto her, Entice him and seize him secretly, perhaps he may hearken to you, and put off this death from you. And Sylvia became worse from her love to Joseph, and she continued to decline, till she had scarce strength to stand. And on a certain day Joseph was doing his master's work in his house, and Sylvia came secretly and fell suddenly upon him. And Joseph rose up against her, and he was more powerful than she, and he brought her down to the ground. And Sylvia wept on account of the desire of her heart toward him. And she supplicated him with weeping, and her tears flowed down her cheeks. And she spoke unto him in a voice of supplication and in bitterness of soul, saying, Has you ever heard, seeing or known of so beautiful a woman as I am, or better than myself, who speak daily unto you, fall into a decline through love for you, confer all this honor upon you, and still you will not hearken to my voice? And if he be brought fear, and if it be through fear, and that your master lest he punish you, as the king liveth, no harm shall come to you from your master through this thing. Now therefore pray, listen to me, and consent for this sake of the honor which I have conferred upon you, and put off this death from me. And why should I die for your sake? And she ceased to speak. And Joseph answered her, saying, Refrain from me, and leave this matter to my master. Behold, my master knows not what there is with me in the house, for all that belongs to him he has delivered into my hand. And now shall I do these things in my master's house? For he has also greatly honored me in this house, and he has also made me overseer of his house, and he has exalted me. And there is no greater in the house than I am, and my master has refrained nothing from me except these, who are his wife, except you who are his wife. Now then, can you speak these words unto me? How can you then speak these words unto me? And how can I do this great evil and sin to Elohim and to your husband? Now therefore refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these, for I will not hearken to your words. But Sileka would not hearken to Josef when he spoke these words unto her, but she daily enticed him to listen to her. And it was after this that the brook of Egypt was filled above all its sides, and all the inhabitants of Egypt went forth, and also the king and princes went forth with timbrels and dances, for it was a great rejoicing in Egypt, and a holiday at the time of the inundation of the sea Shihor. And they went there to rejoice that day. And when the Egyptians went out to the river to rejoice, as was their custom, all the people of the house of Potifar went with them, but Sileka would not go with them, for she said, I am indisposed. And she remained alone in the house, and no other person was with her in the house. And she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house, and dressed herself in princely garment. And she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx stones, inlaid with silver and gold, and she beautified her face and skin with all sorts of woman purifying liquids. And she perfumed the temple and the house with cassia and frankincense. And she sprayed myrrh and aloes. And she afterwards sat in the entrance of the temple, in the passage of the house through which Joseph passed to do his work. And behold, Joseph came from the field and entered the house to do his master's work. And he came to the place through which he had to pass, and he saw all the work of Sileka, and he turned back. And Sileka saw Joseph turning back from her, and she called out to him, saying, What ails you, Joseph? Come to your work. And behold, I will make room for you until you shall have passed to your seat. And Joseph returned and came to the house, and passed from thence to the place of his seat. And he sat down to do his master's work, as usual. And behold, Sileka came to him, and stood before him in princely garments, and the scent of her clothes was spread to a distance. And she hasted and catch hold of Joseph and his garments, and she said unto him, As the king liveth, if he will not perform my request, you shall die this day. And she hastened to stretch forth her other hand, and drew a sword from beneath her garments, and she placed it upon Joseph's neck, and she said, Rise and perform my request, and if not, you die this day. And Joseph was afraid of her at her doing this thing, and he rose up to flee from her, and she seized the front of his garment. And in all terror of his flight, the garment which Sileka seized was torn, and Joseph left his garment in the hand of Sileka, and he fled and got out, for he was in fear. And when Sileka saw that Joseph's garment was torn, and that he had left it in her hand and had fled, she was afraid of her life, lest the report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning, and put off the garment in which she was dressed, and she put on other garments. And she took Joseph's garments, and she laid it beside her, and she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness, before the people of the house had gone out to the river. And she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, See what the Hebrew what a Hebrew your master has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me. And when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garment and tore them and called out to him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid of his life and left his garment before me and fled. And the people of her house spoke nothing, but the wrath was very much kindled against Joseph. And they went to his master and told him the words of his wife. And Potifar came home enraged, and his wife cried out to him, saying, What is this that you have done unto me by bringing a Hebrew servant into my house? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus did he do unto me this day. And Potifar heard the words of his wife, and he ordered Joseph to be punished with severe stripes, and they did so to him. And whilst they were smiting him, Joseph called out with a loud voice, and he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, O Yahweh Elohim, you know that I am innocent of all these things, and why shall I die this day through falsehood? By the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men, who you knows. En annan sak också som de gör, att de tydligt när de står inför en dom eller här då han blir slagen, så lyfter de upp sin röst och talar högt och tydligt, och det är så här, det är ett kommando också att om du hamnar i sådana situationer, falskligen anklagade, så ska du lyfta din röst, höja din röst och ropa till Herren och säga som det är, att Herre, jag är oskyldig i det här, du vet det här liksom. Inte vara tyst, utan öppna upp. And whilst Potifar's men were beating Joseph, he continued to cry out and weep, and there was a child there, 11 months old, and Yahweh opened the mouth of the child, and he spake these words before Potifar's men, who were smiting Joseph. What do you want of this man, and why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speak falsely, and others lies. Thus was the transaction. And the child told them accurately all that happened, and all the words of Sileka and Joseph day after day did he declare unto them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words. And the child ceased to speak and became still. And Potifar was very much ashamed at the words of his son, and he commanded his men not to beat Joseph anymore. And the men ceased beating Joseph. Också intressant att Potifar här han skämdes för det han fick höra. Också tänker jag att det är därför han agerar så. Man skickar han till fängelset. Så här, inte, när man läser Bibeln så tänker man att han bara är elak liksom. Men här får han reda på vad som har hänt. Och skäms. Men vad ska jag göra liksom? Skicka han till fängelset liksom. And Potifar took Joseph and ordered him to be brought to justice before the priests, who were judges belonging to the king, in order to judge him concerning this affair. And Potifar and Joseph came before the priest, who were the king's judges, and he said unto them, Decide, I pray you, what judgment is due to a servant, for thus has he done. And the priest said unto Joseph, Why did you do this thing to your master? And Joseph answered them, saying, Not so, my lords. Thus was the matter. And Potifar said unto Joseph, surely I entrusted in your hands all that belongs to me, and I withheld nothing from you but my wife. And how could you do this evil? And Joseph answered, saying, Not so, my lord. All as Yahweh liveth, and as your soul liveth, my lord, the word which you did hear from your wife is untrue, for thus was the affair this day. A year has elapsed to me since I have been in my house. Has you seen any iniquity in me, or anything which might cause you to demand my life? And the priest said unto Potifar, Send, we pray you, and let them bring before us Joseph's torn garment, and let us see the tear in it, and if it shall be that the tear is in the front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her, and she must have caught hold of him to come to her. And with deceit did your wife do all that she had spoken. Jag vill bara hoppa tillbaka med några små saker jag noterar. Jag säger ju Yahweh istället för Lord. Man använder ju Lord till andra, det är titlar. Så här har vi Lord till Potifar med litet L. Herren då har fått det Lord med stort L. Men det är också bara en titel. Han heter ju, han har ju ett namn. Vilket jag lutar åt att säga Yahweh. Och här används ordet också iniquity. Har du sett någon iniquity in mig? Alltså, laglöshet är ju det. Har du sett mig bryta mot, ja men nu är han i Potifars hus. Där finns det lagar och regelverk. Herren, Yahweh har också regelverk. Och Yahusha, Jesus, säger ju det att men gå bort ifrån mig, ni som är laglösa, ni som inte har hållit det här regelverket. And they brought Joseph garments before the priest, who were judges, and they saw and beheld the tear was in front of Joseph, and all the judges priest knew that she had pressed him. And they said, the judgment of death is not due to this slave, for he has done nothing, but his judgment is that he be placed in the prison house on account of the report, which through him has gone forth against your wife. And Potifar heard their word, and he placed him in the prison house, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And Joseph was in the house of confinement 12 years. And notwithstanding this, his master's wife did not turn from him, and she did not cease from speaking to him day after day to hearken to her. And at the end of 3 months, Sileka continually going to Joseph to the house of confinement day by day, and she enticed him to hearken to her. And Sileka said unto Joseph, How long will you remain in this house? But hearken now to my voice, and I will bring you out of this house. And Joseph answered her, saying, It is better for me to remain in this house than to hearken to your words, to sin against Elohim. And she said unto him, If you will not perform my wish, I will pluck out your eyes and feathers to your feet, and will deliver you into the hands of them that you did not know before. And Joseph answered her and said, Behold, the Elohim of the whole earth is able to deliver me from all that you can do unto me. For he opened the eyes of the blind, and looses those that are bound, and preserveth all strangers who are unacquainted with the land. Ett sånt svar ska man ha i svåra lägen. Josef svarar, skaparen av himmel och jord kan rädda mig, och han kan göra det. Du kan inte göra någonting. Alltså han kan ta mig från allt som man försöker sätta mig i. För han öppnar de blindas ögon och lättar på banden, släpper kedjorna. Jag tycker det bara är härligt beskrivet. Det som sån är Jahwe. And when Silika was unable to persuade Joseph to hearken to her, she left off going to entice him, and Joseph was still confined in the house of confinement. And Jacob, the father of Joseph, and all his brethren who were in the land of Canaan, still mourned and wept in those days on account of Joseph, for Jacob refused to be comforted for his son Joseph. And Jacob cried aloud and wept and mourned all those days. Kapitel 40. When it came about after these things, that the cupbearer and the baker for the king of Egypt offended their lord, the king of Egypt, and Pharaoh was furious with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the bodyguard, in the prison, the same place where Joseph was imprisoned. And the captain of the bodyguard put Joseph in charge of them, and they took care of them. He took care of them, and they were in confinement for some time. Then the cupbearer and the baker for the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, both had a dream the same night, each man with his own dream, and each dream with its own interpretation. When Joseph came to them in the morning and saw them, behold, they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were with him in confinement in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" And they said to him, "We have had a dream, and there is no one to interpret it." Then Joseph said to them, Do interpretation not belong to Elohim? Tell it to me, please. Intressant svar. Uttydning tillhör inte uttydning Herren. Men man ska kunna tyda drömmarna. Tydningen, alltså, är det inte det är Herren som ska göra det, säger han. So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph, saying to him, "In my dream, behold, there was a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches, and as it was budding, its blossoms came out, and its clusters produced ripe grapes. Now Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I put the cup in Pharaoh's hand. Then Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you will put Pharaoh's cup into his hand, as in your former practice when you were his cupbearer. Only keep me in mind when it goes well for you, and please do me a kindness by mentioning me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this prison. For I was in fact kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to that they should have put me in the dungeon." Och som sagt, här jag blev kidnappad från hebreernas land. Jag ska se om jag kan hitta när börjar man kalla det här för hebreerna. Jag tänker om det är när sönerna, de har ju tagit Tjeckien och de krigar med kungarna och Amoritien, tror jag. Om det är där, i det läget, att de börjar kallas för hebreer. When the chief baker saw that he had interpreted favorably, he said to Joseph, I also saw in my dream, and behold, there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head, and in the top basket there were some of all kinds of baked food for Pharaoh, and the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. Then Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and will hang you on a wooden post, and the birds will eat of your flesh. So it came about on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he held a feast for all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his office, and he put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Och i Jasher 46 i slutet där. And the butler to whom Joseph had interpreted his dream forgot Joseph, and he did not mention him to the king as he has promised. For this thing was from Yahweh, in order to punish Joseph, because he had trusted in man. And Joseph remained after this in the prison house 2 years, until he had completed 12 years. Så han fick vara 12 år i fängelset. Och jag tycker bara en intressant notering här att det var Herren som styrde, att han inte kom ihåg det där. För att Herren, det var ett straff till Josef för att han hade lagt sin förtröstan i människor. Och han gjorde det. Han bad ju honom där att tala väl för mig. Och man kan ju be människor såklart att göra någonting bra, eller be om nåd eller vad som helst. Men antagligen gjorde han inte det, utan hans hopp var här. Herren såg att hans hopp går till att han ska prata väl om honom istället för att Herren har en väg ut där. Bara intressant att se de här små detaljerna. Och också vad kan det ha för implikation på våra liv? Hur kan vi, litar vi på Herren? Litar vi på människor? Jag tycker sånt här är jätteintressant. För Herren styr. Det är Herren som styr. Och vi såg det tidigare här att de levde med att det var Herren som var. Det var han som styrde. Och sen kom vi på andra hand. Ja. Det var allt för idag. Vi har läst till kapitel 40, vers 23. Och det finns mer att läsa i Book of Jasher. Det var mycket som vi läste nu. Så fortsätt gärna att läsa om ni tycker det är intressant. Och få mer detaljer. Så. Ja, jag hoppas någonting har varit till någon välsignelse för er. Och att ni har sett någonting nytt. Att Herren har visat någonting. Ja, vi stannar där.